Ellis Cinema back, another dish. How we doing out there? Good, great, grand, and wonderful. Boy, we've been cooking, haven't we? We have been cooking the last couple weeks. And I can tell you, I'm very tired. Eyes are vibrating. Had to rip a couple rails. That's a lie. But, I mean, hopefully you've been enjoying the shows that have been coming out recently, because, boy, did I have a fucking blast on the last few. But this one, I actually have been waiting to talk about for quite a while now, and before I did, I actually reached out to only two people, so I kind of just sat back, waited in the wings, see if one of them wanted to come on, and lo and behold, we actually got who I thought was the show stealer, if we're being completely honest. As good as Jim was, and we will get into that here in a second, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but Ellis Cinema making waves. That just sounds so weird and douchey to say. I apologize. Anyway, as you see on your dial, the Wolf of Snow Hollow. So what is the Wolf of Snow Hollow? Well, terror grips a small mountain town as bodies are discovered after each full moon. Losing sleep, raising a teenage daughter, and caring for his ailing father, Officer John Marshall struggles to remind himself there's no such thing as werewolves. The Wolf of Snow Hollow stars Jim Cummings, Ricky Lindham, Robert Forster, love Robert Forster, Chloe East, Will Madden, and many, many others. Great music by Ben Lovett, superb cinematography by Natalie Kingston, and just really beautiful editing as well by Patrick Nelson Barnes and R. Brett Thomas. So, like I said, it's been a while that I've been wanting to do this because I liked it so much. But you know, I hate doing this show unless I can get somebody interesting on to talk to, and well, today is no different. So, joining the Ellis Cinema podcast for the first time, the taxidermist himself, Will Madden, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing?
Hey, Sean, I am very good. I'm very good. It was so nice hearing all the list of all those awesome people who worked on the movie. It was cool. I had a whole flashback. It was great.
To be honest with you, I wanted to go down the entire line because I think the reason why, or one of the many reasons why this film works is you guys are all doing exceptional work. Every last one of you. It doesn't matter if you're, 6th, 7th on the casting sheet or if you're holding the boom mic. I think everybody from the cast and crew down just nailed a really unique project.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would agree. I think everyone kind of brought their own specific kind of chutzpah to it. And I think, Jim's the kind of director that you watch his movies and you got to kind of feel for the aesthetic. And then you kind of know how to sort of gauge and bring in your expertise, be it cinematography or acting or, wardrobe. It's kind of, you get a vibe from how he operates, going into it.
Yeah, and then actually watching some of the bonus features on the Blu-ray, the physical release, he's a madman. He's a whirlwind, but in the best way possible. Yes. It looks like. Yes,
I mean he's literally. I've worked on probably half a dozen things with Jim, and every time he is wearing 8 hats, and he's just like the Duracell bunny, kind of just madman running back and forth. It's really kind of a marvel to behold. He'll like jump in front of the camera, jump behind the camera, run over here, run over there. He's just on 24/7. And he's able to be on 24/7 and then like do really good work at the same time,
Really exceptional work. In fact, what I was actually thinking of when I was watching it, the second, third time through, just kind of taking down my notes and everything, and also watching those bonus features, I was reminded of Motherless Brooklyn. Do you know what I'm talking about? That Edward Norton
Norton movie, yeah.
Yeah, so Ed will probably never listen to this, but just before I say what I'm going to say, I love Motherless Brooklyn, okay? But what I found myself thinking probably more often than I should is, so for those of you that don't know, Edward Norton wrote, directed, and starred in Motherless Brooklyn, alongside, some A-listers. I'm sitting there watching, and I'm kind of going, the product is suffering, and my hypothesis is because Edward may be wearing too many hats. That's kind of which can happen. And it's not so much, like, well, that movie stunk because of Edward Norton. That's not what I'm saying at all. I do think that there are scenes that could have been a lot better if maybe Mr. Norton wasn't so focused on everything around him. And then I watch something like this, and again, watching the bonus features, you don't see that with Jim on this picture. And I know one's significantly bigger budget and everything than the other, but I still think in terms of execution, man, this was something to behold, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think the two things I'd say is, like, one is, like, who's the team that you have next to you helping cover all the bases that maybe you're not an expert in. Who's your producing team, and who are your, people who are making the movie around you and allowing you to kind of totally let go of one job to focus on the next, while you're sort of operating in that way. And like the producing team, Matt Miller, Natalie Metzger, and Ben Wiesner have done all Jim's features, and they're able to kind of like create the environment and let him just rip inside of it, and like they are able to support him in that way. And the other thing I'd say is that, like, I know Jim since we were teenagers, and everything he's ever done, he's worn like 5 hats. So I think he, in the way that, like, I was trained as an actor, or, maybe Edward Norton, it's like you focus on one thing for so long,
right,
and then you start to try and do other things. It's like a different kind of ball game. But Jim, I think acting has been, like a 10% thing, as directing has been 10%, as writing has been 10%. He's done 10 things to, like, kind of make him the sort of filmmaker he is. So I think he's used to wearing many hats, which is probably a big element of, being able to just upgrade budget to budget, level size of the project to size of the project, because he's already comfortable doing 5 things at once, So.
And it works when you run the risk of it falling flat on your face, or it falling flat on its face. So, So Will Madden, Paul Carnery, the taxidermist. How did you become involved in this project? It doesn't need to be long. Was it just you heard Jim was doing another piece, you're like, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. Or, was there kind of a backstory to you signing on for this project?
Sure. Yeah. I've known Jim for forever, so we've been close friends and sort of like brothers. And I remember him talking about doing a werewolf movie back in like 2008 or something. He was like, I want to make a werewolf movie. And he had like a draft of a script. And like, that's just kind of always been an ethereal thing. So I've always like heard about this project and him wanting to do it. And then, everything happened with his career from Sundance and stuff. And then eventually he's just like, yeah, we're getting to do this movie. And, I think you might be right for this one creepy role. And then let's kind of talk about it. And we like had a session where we kind of talked through the script after I read it, and kind of like started to sort of like improv rehearse, kind of loosely, laughing halfway through it. And he was kind of like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. And then, you don't turn that down. so it's pretty simple. It's lucky.
Yeah, I'd say, and I wasn't bullshitting in the beginning. Like, I think you could make the argument that you're a show stealer, my friend. So I think signing on for this, I mean, it was, I know for me, it was really fun to watch, and I know that I'm not alone. So I guess take Jim out of the picture. You don't know Jim, but the script is still as strong. What would you say would be one of the things that most attracted you to this project, and with friendship aside?
Yeah, right. Well, it's always fun, just in a nerdy actor talk world. It's like the idea of getting to sort of play 2 dimensions of a character. Who is this guy who has this deep, dark, horrific secret in this whole other life? And then who is he? How does he conduct himself in public, hiding that secret? So I think like the most exciting thing just off the bat is like, ooh, how do these guys behave in their day to day? And then that just little like jumping like springboard of like, we can now, I have now 4 months to just research serial killers. I get to research these guys, right. And that like dark, morbid. It's kind of the thing. Like we all have weird, morbid, inclinations, like I'm curious about this area of the world, blah blah blah. But in acting, you get to kind of unabashedly dive in and explore it sometimes. So it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's like, I can't go out. I'm going to spend 4 hours watching true crime and reading books about serial killers. Like, it gives you permission to kind of be a weirdo and sort of, but like, so that invitation became the most, and I think I probably learned the most I've ever learned working on anything acting, doing this movie, because of the psychology of it. It's like, just a fascinating feast to devour, invitation to be like, let's puzzle over the mind of these guys to try and get into it. So that became, at the very first and very last, the most sort of the biggest gift and the most fun about the project.
This is no bullshit. This was towards the end of my notes, like way towards the end. I have written down here, in fact, yet again, the piece is very rooted in reality, because serial killers are notorious for not being able to help themselves when it comes to talking about the case. And in fact, a lot of them are failed cops, and a lot of them get caught by rooting around, would be just like, for lack of better terms. So I love to hear you say that, because in fact, I'm glad you said it first, because I trail off in my notes here that says, what am I talking about? I may like true crime a little much. Anyway, it's an aspect of the film that I like because it's very believable.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that was kind of, once you sort of do the handshake of like, cool, we're going to do this, we're going to make this thing, we're going to go on this journey together. The very next thought is the trickle of sweat down your spine. You're like, all right, we got to really do it now, and we got to make this, even though it's a horror comedy, etc. It's like, this is real. These are real people. This happens in our world. So like, let's really do this a kind of justice to tell the truth of these stories. So I think, Jim, my first homework from Jim was to read the book Mindhunter. He gave me a couple.
Great book. Well, actually, very uneasy to read, but it is a great book. It's honestly one of the darkest pieces I've ever read. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, the one, everyone kind of has heard of the show now, and the show is kind of much more fictionalized, and I think the characters' names are different and stuff. But John Douglas is the guy who invented criminal profiling. From like, you see a bloody crime scene, and you figure out, because of what happened, the kind of guy might be 40, he might be a college graduate, and maybe divorced twice. And then that's kind of he's a sort of genius who created a way to catch criminals in this new, profound, sort of puzzling way. So like, that was the roadmap, I think, definitely for me, and I think for Jim as well, as we went on the journey, just to be like, how do we just inject the truth into this? What's all the little weird things about the behavior of these guys that you can't really make up, or you wouldn't really think of, when it comes to them sort of enjoying being interviewed by the police a lot of the times, and enjoying being like interested in the case is a factor of these characters. So like, little things like that became, Mindhunter was like the tome that we used throughout the whole shoot that we just devoured.
Yeah, I mean, like, book, that guy in Atlanta, speaking of the book Mindhunter, the guy in Atlanta, like, he pretended to help out the case multiple times until they finally were just like, oh, wait a minute, it's you. You're the one. And we have a very similar moment, one of my favorite moments of the film, where that may or may not happen to your character. Hey, could you stand would you mind standing at your regular height here?
Right. Yes.
What I wanted to also ask, so I know, again, I know he's your friend. I understand this, but I gotta think it's different working with someone who is writing, directing,